Grandma reveals her traumatic family abuse past that will shock everyone. The sun poured through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the well-loved table where Clara and her family gathered for their customary Sunday lunch. Laughter erupted as her siblings recounted silly childhood memories. The aroma of roasted chicken and cinnamon apples wafted through the air, mingling with the sounds of silverware clinking on plates. It felt like any other joyful gathering, until Grandma spoke up. "Can I have everyone's attention?" Her voice trembled, slicing through the surface joy like a knife. The bustling chatter turned to hushed murmurs, eyes darting between family members, asking questions that hung thick in the air. Clara felt a knot forming in her stomach. A growing anticipation that something momentous was about to unfold. "I have something important to share." Grandma's gaze dropped to her hands, trembling slightly over her lap. The hue of her skin had gone pale, contrasting sharply with the black cardigan she always wore, a constant comfort wrapped around her. "There are shadows in this family's past, shadows I should have spoken about long ago." The words dripped like rain from a thick cloud, heavy with pain. Clara's heart raced, a thumping drum against her chest. She had always idolized her grandmother, the woman who seemed unstoppable, the pillar of strength. But now a different picture began to form, a picture lined with darkness. "Your uncle." Grandma hesitated, the name hanging precariously. "In the air, he isn't who you think he is. He did things, terrible things." Gasps echoed around the table, punctuated by a shrill silence that followed like a ghost. Clara's siblings exchanged wide-eyed glances, confusion morphing into disbelief. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in as dread laced through their thoughts. The uncle they'd admired, shared vacations with, now bore a sinister suspicion. Was he the monster they never knew? Her heart thudded incessantly, battling between innocence lost and the painfully raw truth unfolding. The atmosphere thickened with a palpable tension. Clara felt a heat rising to her cheeks as an old memory surfaced, an instance when her uncle had crossed a line that seemed innocuous at the time but now twisted into something foreboding. Her mind buzzed, spiraling into uncertainty about everyone's stories, their lives linked by the weight of this newly unearthed pain. Just as Clara's thoughts spiraled further, she caught sight of Grandma, wiping a silent tear from her cheek. In that moment, she realized the burden her grandmother had carried alone for years was now laid before them, like a horror story that refused to be tucked away. Later that evening, as Clara wandered through the empty halls of the family home, she found herself drawn to an old trunk tucked in the corner of the attic. Dust danced in the beams of light, illuminating a world forgotten. Inside rested a diary, weathered and barely holding together. Intrigued, she opened it to reveal entries that whispered secrets of despair, echoing pain that rippled through their lineage. Clara's pulse quickened as she read. Each word felt like a spark that would either light the way to clarity or engulf her in flames of despair. Could she confront this past without tearing her family apart? Even as her heart ached for her grandmother, could she ignore the truth that called out for recognition? The weight of her decision settled heavily on her shoulders. As she shut the diary, Clara stood at the threshold of something monumental. Would unearthing the past lead to long-sought justice or force her family deeper into darkness? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And since you're here, smash that like button because it really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Clara shut the dusty diary, her mind racing. Shadows of the past loomed larger than before, and the air in the attic felt thick with unspoken truths. She could hear her own heart pounding, matching the urgency of each word she had read. What was she to do now? The weight of her grandmother's revelations rested on her shoulders. But just as she turned to leave, a loud crash erupted from the floor below. Her heart leaped into her throat. "What was that?" she whispered to herself, rushing toward the attic door. As she descended the stairs, the familiar warmth of home felt strangely foreign. Warped by the chilling shadows now dancing in her mind, the sounds of laughter from earlier felt far away, like echoes from another life. She reached the living room, where her family had been seated just moments ago. But chaos engulfed the scene now. Chairs were overturned, and her siblings were clustered together, wide-eyed and trembling. Clara's breath quickened as she scanned the room for Grandma. There she was, kneeling on the floor, surrounded by shattered glass from a picture frame that lay in pieces at her feet. "Grandma!" Clara rushed forward, but something in her grandmother's eyes stopped her cold. It wasn't just fear or sorrow, but an expression Clara had never seen before. Something darker. "What happened?" she demanded, her voice a tight whisper. "Your uncle," Grandma's voice cracked. "He's here. He's back." The room fell into a suffocating silence. Clara's mind raced. Back? It didn't make sense. He hadn't been there for years. Not since. The accusations. The ones Grandma had finally begun to unravel. Just as Clara opened her mouth to ask more questions, the front door swung open. The sound reverberated through the house, and time froze. Clara's heart pounded in her chest as she turned slowly. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the light. The man stepped forward, and horror washed over her. "Hello, family," he said, his voice smooth, unsettling. "Miss me?" It was her uncle, the very person they'd fought far away, maybe even imprisoned by shame and regret. But he stood before them, a predator cloaked in faux charm. The air crackled with tension as Clara's siblings instinctively moved closer, clinging to each other. "What do you want?" Clara managed to ask, her voice breaking, the fear palpable. "Want? I came to set the record straight. There's so much you don't know," he replied, a sinister smile creeping along his lips. "Like the real reason I left." Just then, Grandma stood up, her hands trembling at her sides. "You won't do this to my family again," she shouted, her voice hoarse with years of hidden pain boiling to the surface. Clara could see the stories etched on her face, lines of anguish woven like a tapestry. "You don't know who you're protecting, do you?" he shot back, a glint of menace flashing in his eyes. "This family is built on lies." Gasping, Clara felt her insides twist. What had he meant? Was Grandma's past more intertwined with his than she had ever imagined? Snippets of the diary raced through her mind, secrets hinting at betrayal, words that begged to be understood. The siblings exchanged uneasy glances, uncertainty fraught with danger. The uncle's presence transformed the air, shifting the very ground beneath them. "Tell them, Grandma," he taunted, stepping closer. "Tell them the truth about who I really am and who you really are." Clara's heart sank. A weighty dread nestled in her chest. Grandma seemed frozen, caught in a storm of her own regrets. The air thickened, charged with anger and confusion. Secrets that should have been buried now clawed their way to the surface, promising to unravel everything. Clara's mind swirled. Had they been wrong about everything they held dear? The ground trembled beneath them, and the house felt like it was on the brink of collapse. Would they ever escape the shadows lurking in the past? Or were they destined to repeat the cycle of pain, forever ensnared in the web of family secrets? The tension hung heavy, crackling in the air like an impending storm. Clara's heart pounded, each beat echoing in her ears. Grandma stood rooted in place, frozen in fear, while her uncle stepped further into the house. Shadows danced across his face, but that smile, smooth and unsettling, stayed firmly planted. "Set the record straight," Grandma finally voiced, her tone shaky but fierce. "You think you can just waltz back in here and manipulate us?" "Manipulate," he scoffed, a sneer playing on his lips. "I'm here to save you. You're living a lie. All of you." Clara felt the room close in more and more. Eyes darted around, unsure. Her siblings were quiet, their wide eyes betraying the confusion and fear that had settled deep in their chests. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles turning white. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but carrying a weight that even surprised her. "Tell them about the day you took my side, Grandma," he prodded, his voice dripping with mockery. "Tell them how you helped cover up what I really am." The way. Grandma trembled, sent shivers down Clara's spine. There was something in her stance, a heaviness in her shoulders, that now looked less like strength and more like surrender. The room felt like it was spinning with unspoken truths. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows that seemed to crawl up the walls. "Enough!" Grandma shouted suddenly, her voice echoing off the walls. Clara jumped, surprised by the fire that sparked in her grandmother's eyes. "You don't scare me anymore. I carried your burden for too long. It's time your lies come to light." The world around them seemed to still. Clara's breath caught in her throat. The words felt like a match thrown into a dry field, igniting the truth that had been buried for too long. "Lies?" Clara's heart raced. "What did you do?" Her uncle stepped back, a flicker of fear crossing his face that sent chills racing through Clara's heart. "You don't know anything, Grandma," he hissed. "It's not just me. You're the real monster here. You know what you did." But Grandma's resolve only seemed to strengthen. "It's time you face the truth. You think I didn't know? I saw you for what you were all those years ago." Just as the weight of Grandma's words hung in the air like a thunderclap, the windows shattered. Glass shot inward like a flock of angry birds, exploding in a swirl of sparkling fragments. Clara screamed, ducking instinctively. Amid the chaos, a dark figure rushed into the room, clad in black. Clara's eyes widened in disbelief as ripped jeans and a leather jacket registered. It was a stranger, but there was something eerily familiar about him as he lunged toward her uncle. "Shut up!" the newcomer shouted, his voice a guttural roar. "You don't get to waltz back into this family like nothing happened." Clara's breath caught. He grabbed her uncle, spinning him around, and in that moment, she saw the face. It was a face she hadn't seen in years, a face she thought had been lost to time. Her cousin, the one who vanished, the one they had all mourned. But how? Clara blurted out, confusion soaring within her. "Everything you thought you knew about this family is a lie," he spat at her uncle, breathing hard. "You think you're the victim? You know nothing." The room erupted with a fury of emotions: fear, disbelief, anger, and amid the chaos, Clara's mind spiraled. Each revelation shifted like a tectonic plate, threatening to shatter everything she believed. The truth was a shifting sand beneath her feet, and each second dropped them further into unknown depths. "Get away from him!" Grandma shouted, taking a step towards her past, her voice breaking. As they all stood there, the air thick and electric, Clara felt an overwhelming mix of dread and adrenaline. What had her family become? Secrets weighed heavily on them, and now they threatened to snuff out whatever joy they had left. "Who are you?" Clara managed to get out, eyes darting between her uncle and the returned cousin. "What are you talking about?" "Just wait," her cousin said, glaring fiercely at the uncle. "You're about to find out what you really are." And in that moment, Clara knew this was just the beginning. The truth was finally clawing its way to the surface, and it pulled her deeper into the shadows that had haunted her family for far too long. Would they survive the reckoning? Were they even ready to confront what lay hidden in their hearts? The tension crackled like static in the air, a tight knot forming in Clara's stomach as the room hung heavy with unsaid words. She looked desperately at her grandmother, then back at her uncle, whose sinister smile turned almost predatory, feeding off the fear filling every corner of the room. But before anyone could speak, the floorboards creaked behind them. Clara whipped around, her heart racing. A figure stepped into the chaotic scene, a woman, dark-haired and fierce, her expression hard as stone. She was familiar, yet foreign, and suddenly Clara felt a shiver race down her spine. "Who are you?" Clara's voice cracked, needing answers that slipped like water through her fingers. The stranger smirked, locking eyes with Grandma. "You don't even recognize your own daughter, do you?" A chilling silence swept through the room. Clara's heart plummeted. "Your daughter?" The implications landed like a ton of bricks. Grandma's voice trembled, a mix of horror and defiance. "No, Sarah, I thought you were gone. I mourned you." "Did you?" The woman's voice turned icy. "Or did you just bury the truth with your lies?" Clara felt the world spin as her uncle recoiled, eyes wide with disbelief. "You can't be serious. You can't." "Watch me," Sarah interrupted, stepping further inside, shadows flickering across her face. "You all need to understand that the monster in our family isn't who you think. It's time to face who really caused the damage." Gasps filled the room, whispers tumbling from her siblings' lips like marbles rolling away. The air felt suffocating, moaning under the weight of buried secrets. Clara's mind raced, grasping at fragments. Sarah, her own aunt hidden in plain sight. "What do you mean?" Clara pressed, desperation rising. "What happened? What did he do?" For a moment, confusion clouded Sarah's expression, quickly replaced by a smirk that seemed so misplaced, unnerving like a sliver of ice stabbing into warm water. "Oh, sweet Clara, you have no idea. The stories Grandma told, they were to protect you, to protect us all. But now," she gestured at the uncle, her expression dark. "With him back, everything's about to come crumbling down. It was never just him." Clara's breath came in shallow gulps, threading deeper confusion and fear as the world around her shattered. "What do you mean everything? You can't just show up and drop this bombshell." But Sarah's voice grew louder, vibrating with the anger and pain that Clara could almost touch. "This family is cursed. Your uncle's back to claim what's his, but he doesn't understand the mess he's stepping into. The gravity of the past will swallow him whole and take us with him." Just then, the air all around them shifted. A loud crack echoed. A flash of light bursting through the window pane, exploding into a bright blue light that engulfed the room, sending Clara staggering back. "No!" Grandma shouted, lunging toward Sarah. But it was too late. Clara felt lightheaded, the room spinning more violently as shadows twisted and twirled. Her vision blurred. As reality warped, Clara caught glimpses of the two women, Sarah and Grandma, locked in a fierce gaze, eyes aflame with unresolved history. Who was the real monster here? Clara's heart raced as she felt a tremor under her feet. A strange, ominous force that shook the very foundation of everything they stood on. And then, suddenly, the light vanished, and with it, so did Sarah. Only silence remained. Doors swung open and closed at the wing's command. Clara's mind was a whirl. Ever know the truth? What had just happened? Had Sarah come to save them, or to destroy them all? The room held its breath, and Clara stood frozen, questions pounding in her chest like thunder. Grandma's face twisted in a mix of anguish and defiance as Sarah vanished into the shadows. Then the silence shattered, a sharp crack reverberating like a slap across their faces. Suddenly, the room dimmed, the air thickening with an oppressive weight. Clara's heart raced, sensing something was about to plunge them into chaos. Just as she opened her mouth to ask if they were safe, the familiar sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway. But not just any footsteps. Heavy boots stomping hard like an approaching storm. Her stomach lurched. Out of nowhere, the front door flew open again, and in strode another figure. A woman, tall and fierce, with wild hair cascading around her shoulders and dark eyes ablaze with fury. It was Aunt Jenna. Clara's heart skipped. Her aunt had been estranged, locked away in yet another family feud. Yet here she was, as if the chaos of the evening had pulled her right back into the fray. "What is happening?" Jenna shouted, her voice cutting through the tension. Fear and anger twisted her features, demanding answers. "I heard shouting from the street. What did you do, Marco?" Every head turned toward her uncle, the tension in his entire frame shifting, instantly exposing the cracks in his facade. "It's not what you think. I can explain," he stammered, casting quick glances around the room. But Jenna advanced, her fury palpable. 3 years, Marco. You chose to disappear." "Enough," Grandma shouted, raising her trembling hand like a shield, but ultimately too weak to shield. "This isn't the time for more fighting." Clara's mind raced as tension dripped thicker. "Wait, what do you mean, disappeared?" She felt like she was losing her grip. What happened? Jenna's gaze snapped back to Clara, the urgency in her expression deepening. "It's about time you all knew the truth. Marco, the mess you created was not just about you. There's more at stake here." Suddenly, a strangled sound came from the corner of the room where Clara's brother stood, mouth agape. "What?" he gasped. The weight of the moment pressed down on every single one of them. "What truth?" Clara demanded, craving clarity, energy buzzing like static around her. "Stop!" Marco's voice rose in desperation, but it only fueled Jenna further. "You know good and well what you did. You think you can come back after abandoning us and rewrite our story?" And then, as if a dam burst, secrets flooded the room. "The reason I couldn't stay was because of you, Aunt Jenna. I needed to protect my family," Marco cried, desperation spilling over. "This isn't just about me. It's about what you all do not know." But before another word could escape anyone's lips, the lights flickered violently, shadows danced, and Clara felt a surge of energy, as if the very walls were alive. Suddenly, an icy chill swept through the living room, the temperature dropping so fast that Clara's breath raced out invisible clouds. And then, with a thunderous boom, the attic door burst open. Clara's pulse quickened as another figure emerged, their long-lost sister, Emma, who had vanished years ago under mysterious circumstances. "You're all too late!" she shouted, hair wild and eyes wild, racing towards them as if she'd chased time itself. "The truth is here. It's time to uncover everything." Shock gripped the room as Clara's heart thudded violently in disbelief. Emma wasn't dead. She was alive. "What truth?" Clara managed, shaking her head, trying to hold on to sanity while everything spun like a whirlwind around her. As Emma stepped into the light, the shadows chased after her, dark and haunting. Clara could barely breathe. "You think you know this family?" Emma's voice was sharp, piercing through the chaos. "You only know what they want you to know." The walls trembled, their family history erupting like a volcano, bubbling over with pain and betrayal. Clara's entire world tilted, reality threatening to crumble. Would they be able to withstand the truth about who they of Emma's shocking reappearance ringing in her ears? Her heart raced, trying to grasp the sprawling web of truths that now threatened to crush them all. "What truth?" she managed to choke out, her voice barely above a whisper. She couldn't shake the feeling that danger was lurking behind every shadow. "Enough games!" Jenna shot back at Marco, her frustrations boiling over. "You've dragged us all into this mess, and now it's time to own up to it. Sarah's telling the truth. The monster isn't just him." "No," Clara interjected, feeling her chest tighten. "Who's the real monster?" A sinking dread mixed with determination. "What are you all hiding?" The weight of their secrets hung like a storm cloud, waiting to burst. Emma stepped closer, eyes dark and fierce. "You think you know, but you have no idea what's been going on. We're not just a family. We're a collection of broken pieces. Pieces that can shatter the moment light hits them." "Light?" Grandma gasped, a look of profound fear crossing her features. "You think the truth is our salvation? The past doesn't just vanish when revealed." Suddenly, a rumble filled the air, and the ground trembled beneath them. Clara stumbled back, her vision spinning as the walls around them vibrated. "What's happening?" she cried, her voice rising above the chaos. But before anyone could answer, a deafening crack rang out, followed by an explosion of light. The room was engulfed in a blinding flash, blurring everyone's faces into a chaotic tide of colors. Clara clutched her eyes, entrapped in the moment, a spark of fear ignited in the pit of her stomach. When the light faded, they all blinked through the haze. But Clara's heart plummeted at what she saw. Standing before them, framed in glass shards and soft light, was a figure, translucent, quivering with energy. "What?" Clara's voice trailed off. The figure wore familiar features, resembling someone she thought she'd lost forever. It was her mother, long gone, the woman they all mourned. "Mom?" Clara's breath caught. "Is it really you?" The specter's lips moved, but no words escaped. Just silence filled the room, a silence that pierced sharper than any scream. The haunting visage strained, eyes gleaming with sorrow and despair, glancing toward Grandma. "Your lies buried me," the apparition seemed to cry, though no sound escaped her mouth. The air turned tense and thick, suffocating them all. "Clara, get back!" Jenna shouted, lunging toward the ethereal figure in panic. But before she could reach her, a rush of energy exploded, pushing them all back like a tidal wave. The room shook violently, tables upending and photos crashing to the floor. "What is happening?" Marco shouted, a mix of awe and terror streaking across through silent lips, the intensity of her gaze penetrating the depths of Clara's soul. "You must confront the truth. Your family depends on it." And with that, like a flame extinguished, everything went dark. Clara squeezed her eyes shut, heart racing, pulse throbbing in her ears. Just as suddenly, the lights flickered back on, revealing chaos. Clara gasped. They were no longer in the living room. They stood in a damp, dark basement filled with dust and cobwebs. The air heavy with age, like forgotten memories locked away. Heart racing, she looked back, only to realize everyone was gone. "Mom!" Clara called out, panic creeping in, echoing off the stone walls. Silence. Had it all just been a dream? A cruel twist of her imagination? "Where are you?" she whispered into the dark, trembling fingers brushing against the cold, uneven surface of the wall. Shadows lurked, alive and watching. Then a sinister laughter echoed from the corner, unmistakably familiar. "Welcome back, Clara." It was her uncle's voice, smooth and chilling. The pieces slammed together in her mind. The truths, the lies, the darkness, they all circled back, and Clara stood at the edge of a breaking point. Would she dive deeper into the darkness to uncover what they all buried? Or would this be the end of everything she ever thought she knew? Clara stood frozen, heart racing, as her uncle's voice echoed ominously in the air. "Welcome back, Clara." She felt her stomach twist, fear bubbling at the back of her throat. No, not now, not here. Where were her family? "What have you done?" she whispered, her voice trembling, a primal rush of terror surging through her veins. But Marco only leaned closer, eyes glinting with the shadows dancing around them. "Don't you see?" he replied, voice dripping with malicious glee. "You've been brought back to face the reality you've ignored for too long. This isn't just a family reunion, Clara. It's a reckoning." Before she could respond, another shift erupted in the basement. An intense flash lit the darkness, illuminating the corners of the space, revealing fragments of what looked like old family photos lined along the damp walls. But it was the faces on those photos that struck Clara like a lightning bolt. "What?" Her voice broke as her breath hitched, eyes widening in disbelief. There, smiling and carefree, were her mother and Marco together in a summer picnic. But there was more. Each photo displayed a darker timeline, their smiles fading into expressions of fear and sorrow. Her mother stood side by side with him in every single one. "Get away from her!" Clara shouted, instinct replacing fear. A surge of anger tore through her, pushing her past the palpable dread. "What did you do to my mother?" Marco grinned, that twisted smile creeping across his face again. "What did I do? Or should I ask, what didn't you know?" P challenged, swaggering around the basement like a king in his ruined castle. Clara was dizzy, thoughts spiraling. This was more than an uncle's dark past. This was her mother's buried life. "You're lying!" She shook her head, eyes darting down the darkened path of her childhood memories, desperate for comfort. But truth was a cold blade, cutting into her soul. A sudden burst of energy surged in the room, sending a shiver down her spine. A shadow flickered across the floor by the stairs. She turned, cautious, fear urging her feet to move, to run. But then she saw her, a girl younger than Clara, with wild hair and a fierce glint in her eyes. It was Sarah, but not the Sarah who had haunted them. This was someone else. Clara, the girl breathed, her voice trembling yet commanding. You have to listen. Everything you've been told is a lie. What do you mean? Clara demanded, heart pounding like a drum, half wanting to believe her, half wanting to dismiss her wild claims. What lies? But Sarah stepped forward, eyes darting to Marco. He wasn't the monster. Not entirely. The confession hung in the air, as if it were a ghost, lingering and thick. In that moment, everything shifted. Her past began to unravel. A whisper in the back of her mind. Faint echoes of laughter transforming into cries. And then it shattered. A book lay open beside Clara, its pages fluttering by an unseen wind. She rushed toward it, drawn like a moth to a flame. But just as her fingers brushed the surface, an explosion rocked the basement, sending debris flying in every direction. Amid the chaos, Marco's form flickered, like an old television cutting to static before him. Then it morphed into another familiar face, one she thought she'd shared just memories with. Mom? Clara gasped as the bright light swallowed everything whole. The darkness pressed in on every side, and Clara could hear her own heart, pounding like thunder, drowning out the silence. What just happened? A horror struck deeper than any wound she'd felt before. Her mind reeled. Were they more than just a family? Were they tangled in a web far greater than they could imagine? The sudden weight of their secrets descended like a storm cloud. Clara barely had time to breathe when she saw a glimmer, a light flickering just ahead. Something was wrong. Something was terrifyingly wrong. Clara! A voice broke through her panic, spinning her around to face her mother. True flesh and blood. You need to wake up. Could it be? What was happening? Who was really standing in front of her? Shadows loomed, truth twisted around lies, and Clara's heart thudded like a wild drum. Would she pull back the veil on everything, or was the truth more monstrous than she ever dared to dream? Clara blinked, her heart pounding wildly. Mom? The warmth of her mother's figure flooded her with a rush of emotions. So many questions lodged in her throat, the desire to embrace her overwhelming. But her mother's expression was grave, filled with urgency. Clara, you need to wake up. What do you mean? Clara stumbled back, confusion flooding her mind. Are you here? Did you really come back? Her mother's gaze pierced through the darkness. Listen to me. There's something you don't understand. The truth. It's not what you think. Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the ground. The air thickened, and Clara was thrown off balance. A cacophony of whispers erupted from the shadows, ghostly voices swirling around them. Free us! Unravel the lies! And, just like that, her mother vanished, replaced by an apocalyptic silence that clawed at Clara's sanity. Panic surged within her as shadows shifted and coalesced, revealing Marco standing tall again, a wicked grin plastered across his face. Did you think you could escape this? Did you think she was here to save you? No. Clara shook her head defiantly. You're lying! You're twisting everything! But before Marco could answer, a sudden crack echoed from behind. The basement wall shuddered and crumbled, exposing a hidden door, an ancient wooden door engraved with unfamiliar symbols. Clara's breath caught. Do you see it? Marco sneered, eyes glinting with malice. That's where the real truth lies. But once you walk through it, there's no coming back. A wave of fear washed over Clara. What lay beyond that door? Would it lead her deeper into the darkness? Or would it finally reveal the light hidden beneath the tangled web of family betrayal? But before she could make a choice, a rustling sound emerged. The door burst open, unleashing a torrent of wind that blew through the basement, swirling dust and memories. Clara squinted through the chaos, heart pounding as a figure emerged, stepping into the dim light. It was another woman, familiar, yet not at all what Clara expected. "You did this," she cried, pointing directly at Marco. "You chained us down with your lies." "Who are you?" Clara gasped, recognition flickering at the edge of her mind. The woman stepped closer, revealing her face, sharp and angry, yet soft with pain. It was Lara, Clara's long-lost aunt. "You don't know who I am, do you?" That's what he wanted. Her voice trembled, filled with raw power. "My mother, your grandmother, was never the innocent she portrayed." Clara felt her world tilt again. "What do you mean? You were the black sheep." "No," Lara retorted fiercely, stepping forward, eyes blazing. "I tried to escape her shadow, but I found something she hid from everyone. It's in the heart of this family." Marco laughed, but it was hollow. "You think you can overturn this? You have no idea what you're up against." Lara turned sharply toward him. "You've written our story with your lies, but now it's time for the truth to spill out." Then something shifted violently in the room. The floor cracked wide open, revealing a dark abyss below. Clara's stomach dropped as an icy breeze surged up. She felt her heart race with a mix of fear and exhilaration. They were on the edge of something monumental. A strong voice broke through the tension. "Clara, the truth can either save us or doom us, with everyone watching." Clara stepped toward the gaping abyss. Could she find the answers hidden in the darkness? Before she could decide, Lara reached out, gripping her wrist. Together, she said urgently, "We can break the cycle. We may be the key." But Clara's grip faltered. Could she trust Lara? Or was this yet another twist in the web of lies that encased her family? Just then, a blinding flash erupted, flooding the basement with harsh light. And in that moment, Clara understood everything was about to change. The truth was far darker than she could ever comprehend, and the last piece of the puzzle might shatter her world into pieces. Would she take the leap into the unknown? Or would she stand back, afraid of what she might find? Clara stood there, heart pounding as the light faded away, leaving her in a thick, pulsating silence. "What do you mean, the truth? What truth?" she demanded, desperation creeping into her voice. Her eyes darted between Marco and Lara, each holding the weight of secrets that felt heavier than the very ground beneath her feet. The old basement now thrummed as if it was alive, an unsettling heartbeat echoing through the darkness. Clara felt it in her chest, that rhythmic pulse urging her forward, daring her to confront the fears that had haunted her family for so long. "We can break the cycle," Lara insisted, her hand still clutching Clara's arm, pulling her closer to the revealing door. Marco threw back his head and laughed, a dark, hollow sound that sent chills racing up Clara's spine. "You think you can just walk through that door and uncover the truth? You'll find nothing but darkness." His eyes glimmered with something sinister. Was it fear? Excitement? But then, a distant sound cut through their confrontation, sharp and urgent. A thudding, rhythmic sound, like footsteps, heavy footsteps, advancing from the shadows. Clara's heart skipped, a knot tightening in her throat. "What's that?" she gasped, glancing back toward the entrance. Lara's grip tightened on her wrist. "No, you have to focus. It's not just about us right now. But before she could finish, the basement door flung open, slamming against the wall and causing dust to flutter in their faces. A gust of wind blew through the entry, swirling around Clara like a tempestuous spirit. She squinted from the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light. Clara's breath caught in her throat. It was a man, a burly figure stepping into the chaotic light. Deep-set eyes glinted as he moved closer, and just as he stepped into view, a collective gasp escaped the mouths of everyone present. It was her father, the man they thought had vanished ages ago, the lost soul swallowed by family tragedy. Clara's heart raced, a mix of joy and disbelief swirling together. "Dad?" she called. Disbelief wrapping around her words, his gaze fixed on her, but there was a dark shadow over his features. "Clara, you need to listen." His voice was a low rumble, heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. Clara's chest constricted. "I thought you were gone. What are you doing here?" "Don't let him manipulate you, Clara," Marco growled, stepping forward, rage boiling beneath the surface. "He's the reason everything went wrong. He's the monster." "Monster?" her father shouted back, his voice shaking the very foundations of the basement. "You've painted me as the villain, while you've manipulated everything from the shadows." Stunned silence fell, the confrontational tension pulsing through the air like an impending storm. Clara's head spun, confusion flooding her mind. She didn't know who to believe, the man she thought was lost, or the uncle she barely understood. But then, another twist surged through the room, as sudden and shocking as a lightning strike. The walls vibrated, and with them came memories, visions flashing before Clara's eyes. The last time she saw her father, the truth her mother had hidden, the secrets buried beneath layers of grief. "Clara," her father said, his voice softer now, tinged with urgency. "The truth isn't just family, it's deeper. It's about sacrifices that have been made for you." Laughter bubbled in the background, dark and mocking. Emma emerged from the shadows, eyes glittering with despair. "Sacrifices? You want to talk about sacrifices?" She stepped into the light, every step charged with an electric tension. "You think you're all victims? You're just pawns in this sick game." The room gasped. The air shimmered with uncertainty. Lara tightened her grip on Clara, the weight of their collective pain pressing on them like a suffocating shroud. "We need to uncover the truth," Lara urged, but Clara felt the fabric of reality unravel around her. Could this be the moment? The point where everything she thought she knew turned to ash? Her head spun, breath growing shallow. "Clara, wake up!" her father's voice echoed again. But this time, something shifted. Shadows didn't just loom. They revealed faces, histories, the lifeblood of a family twisted by betrayal. Suddenly, a thundering crash resonated above them, shaking the ceiling. Clara stumbled, gripping the wall for support. "What now?" she cried, but clarity pierced through confusion. In that split second, realization struck her like a bolt of lightning. What if the twisted truth wasn't just about her family? What if it was about her, too? As everything erupted, Clara gripped Lara's hand tighter, fear knotting in her stomach. "Will the truth save us or destroy us all?" she whispered, the question lingering in the air as the darkness surrounded them, ready to swallow everything whole. Clara felt the air thrum around her, vibrational tension crackling like electricity. The basement, heavy with shadows, felt as though it were closing in around her. Her father stood before her, gallant and flawed, as if summoned from the depths of memories shrouded in fog. "Clara, listen closely. Everything we've avoided leads here. The truth isn't an enemy. It's a weapon against our past. Time swirled. The fear that had been gnawing at her heart shifted to resolve. "I want the truth," she declared, voice firm but trembling. "No more hiding, no more shadows." Marco's smirk wavered, an echo of doubt flashing across his features. "You don't know what that truth will cost," he warned, but desperation seeped into his tone. "Then let us pay whatever price is needed," Laura said, stepping forward, fierce with passion. "It's time we reclaim what belongs to us." Her determination hung thick like the air before a storm. Daniel, the man Clara hoped was truly her father, nodded. "We need to face it together. All of us." He gestured at Marco, speaking with a conviction that shook Clara's very core. "What matters is that we finally break the cycle." Clara's courage surged, drawing strength from those around her. "Then let's do it. Together." Just as the atmosphere thickened, Marco lunged. "You really think it will be that easy?" he spat, a flurry of anger illuminating his demeanor. "You'll wish you hadn't." But Clara stepped forward, fearless. "No, today we shatter the lies you've built." The ground beneath them trembled again, the old stones resonating with the battle of truth and deceit. A crack spread across the floor, revealing serpentine shadows that slithered closer, hungry for secrets lost. But Clara stood firm, refusing to be swallowed whole. The shadows coiled, ready to strike, until Lara yelled loud enough to cut through the noise. "Face this. With me." Together, their arms intertwined, they confronted the darkness. Suddenly, a whirl of memories flooded the space. Clara glimpsed flashes of laughter and joy, tainted and marred by undercurrents of fear. But there were moments of light, a distant echo of love. She felt the intertwining of paths, as if the family's collective grief stitched at the seams. Memories surged forward, her father's laughter during picnics, her mother's embrace when she learned to ride a bike. Together, they screamed, voices melding into one. The ground shook violently. Light exploded, illuminating the haunting memories, banishing the shadows that whispered lies. Clara could feel it. The walls shuddered, and Marco staggered under the force of truth rising like flames. The specter of their secrets writhed, each lie attempting to claw its way back into hiding. And then silence. A deep, cutting silence that hung heavy in the air. Clara dared to breathe again, feeling the weight begin to lift. The shadows shrank, dissipating into a fine mist. "Is it over?" Clara breathed, glancing at her father, then at Lara. "Not yet," her father said gently, moving closer toward her. "We have to acknowledge the pain, the choices we made." Lara nodded, her eyes shimmering with resolve. "We're no longer bound by these secrets. We're ready to heal." A sense of clarity washed over Clara. They were a family splintered, but no longer broken. As they embraced, warmth surged through her, washing away the cold remnants of despair. It wouldn't be easy, but they would no longer face the shadows alone. As Clara pulled away, a new resolve ignited within her. They would move forward, together. The weight of their history wouldn't define them. It would guide them toward healing. Turning to the door that had opened from the depths of their past, Clara took a deep breath. "Let's step back into the light," she urged, leading them through the threshold. With the darkness receding behind them and the promise of renewal ahead, their hearts synchronized, ready to build the future they longed for. As they crossed the threshold, Clara cast one last glance back at the place of shadows and pain. It was a time to say goodbye, a moment steeped in hard-earned truth and hard-fought hope. There, Surrounded by family, Clara understood fully. Sometimes, liberation comes from acknowledging even the deepest wounds. Listen up. This is the moment to show your support. You have to subscribe right now to the channel so you don't miss any of the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm and spread these powerful narratives. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this mind-blowing ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this ends. Your support means everything. Together, let's uncover even more incredible tales.